When people think of the Transformers movies, they immediately think of giant robots, explosions, and of course, Linkin Park. Their music did not just complement the action, it defined it. From the very first film, Linkin Park became synonymous with the emotional core of the franchise. This wasn't just another band on a soundtrack. It was a cultural crossover so seamless, it became hard to imagine one without the other. And it all started with one song, What I've Done. A track that didn't just close out the first film, it exploded into pop culture both as a powerful anthem and eventually an iconic meme. Now, everyone remembers the music, everyone remembers the robots, but almost no one knows how these two pop culture giants came together to create cinematic history. So without further ado, let's figure out how Linkin Park and Transformers collided in order to create a moment that defined a generation.
We are here. We are waiting.
Alright, so the story that has been floating around for years about how Linkin Park got involved with the Transformers franchise goes something a little like this. Linkin Park met Megan Fox backstage at one of their concerts. She was a fan of the band and they were fans of Transformers. Knowing that she was going to be the lead actress in the then upcoming Transformers film, they asked her if their music could be used in the movie, and Fox supposedly pulled some strings behind the scenes, which led to What I've Done being featured in the film. It's a cool story, one that fans have repeated so often it's practically become gospel, but there's just one problem. There is no official source confirming this version of events. No interview with the band, no production notes, and no statements from Megan Fox herself or Michael Bay or anyone else involved. It's an unverified rumor, plain and simple. In fact, if you trace it back, the earliest known version of this story comes from a 2009 post on the TFW 2005 forums, a popular Transformers fan site. The post never cited a source, nor did it link any kind of interview or press coverage. But like so many things on the internet, it spread, ending up in several short-form videos and fan wikis that over time it became accepted as truth by people who just assumed it had to be real. But the real story of how Linkin Park ended up in Transformers, that one actually comes from the band themselves, and it paints a very different picture. You see, in a 2017 interview with Brazil's 89FM, guitarist Brad Delson gave the most direct explanation we've ever gotten. According to him, Linkin Park was already thinking about including one of their songs in the first Transformers movie. This wasn't something random. The idea was already floating around internally while the band was working on their third studio album, Minutes to Midnight. That's when director Michael Bay stepped in and brought more than just a conversation. You see, Bay and his team arranged a meeting with the band at a hotel, where they showed them early footage from Transformers, but with the band's music edited into it. Delson did not specify which song it was, only that the track hadn't been released yet and that it only existed as a small preview. It was a curious fact because when we were thinking about including one of our songs in the film Transformers, director Michael Bay came to this hotel with his team and they showed us a bit of the film with our music. We talked and ended up building a connection between Linkin Park songs and the films. The song had not been released yet. There was only a small preview. It was kind of behind the scenes work. This meeting marked the beginning of Linkin Park's relationship with the Transformers franchise, a quiet behind-the-scenes collaboration that started not with rumors or celebrity favors, but with a private creative exchange between a director and a band looking to take their music to the big screen. Now, while we don't have an official statement explaining why What I've Done was chosen specifically, we do know that it ended up playing a major role in the final film. The track was featured during the emotional closing scene, as Optimus Prime delivers his message to the stars. It wasn't just background music, it became the film's unofficial anthem. But what makes this even more incredible is that What I've Done almost did not exist. The song was the very last track written for Linkin Park's album Minutes to Midnight. According to the album's liner notes, the band initially thought that the record was complete, but after sharing it with some close friends, the feedback hit hard. Something was missing. One more song, something that tied the whole thing together, and with deadlines looming, that was a terrifying thought. But instead of panicking, the band rose to the challenge. In just over a week, an incredibly short turnaround compared to the months they had spent working on their other songs, What I've Done was born. A song they hadn't even planned to write ended up becoming the glue that held the whole album together. And yet, despite all the pressure and uncertainty, this was the song that would end up closing one of the biggest blockbusters of the decade. And it did not just make an impact in the film, it became a massive hit in its own right. The song debuted at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it one of the highest debuts of the decade and the band's biggest opening at the time. It shot to number 1 on the modern rock and mainstream rock charts, holding the top spot on alternative songs for 15 weeks straight, tying the all-time record at the time. It would go on to sell over 3.7 million copies in the United States alone. and would be certified 6 times platinum by the RIAA. Its music video, which blended powerful imagery of war, pollution, protests, and global unrest, also became the first Linkin Park song to reach number 1 on MTV's TRL, further cementing its place as a cultural touchstone. With the Transformers film dominating the global box office and What I've Done climbing the charts around the world, the connection between the two was now cemented. Linkin Park wasn't just another band featured in a blockbuster, they were part of the franchise's identity now. So when production began on Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Michael Bay wanted them back, and this time instead of licensing an existing song, he asked Linkin Park to create something original, something specifically made for the next chapter of the story. But before we dive into that, I want to address all my viewers in Europe. If you've ever felt like you're missing out on the best Transformers figures because they're always stuck in the US or Asia, I've got a solution for you. Transforverse.eu, a collector-run shop based in Europe that brings Transformers figures straight to European collectors. Whether you're into the mainline studio series and legacy stuff, high-end collectibles like 3-0, or even fun model kits like Blockies, they've got it all. They actually sent me a few things to show you guys. First up, this little guy, Core Class Dark of the Moon Bumblebee. A small, fun little guy that is perfect for your desk. It's so much fun to flip this guy back and forth from vehicle to robot. Next, they sent me another Bumblebee, but this guy is a lot larger. It's the 3-0 DLX Bumblebee from Transformers The Last Night. This thing is insanely detailed, superposable, and honestly feels like it walked straight out of the movie. It's literally a CGI model in the palm of your hands, and his hammer is so much fun to mess around with. And finally, something a little different. The Blockies Rise of the Beast Nemesis Prime Classic Class Model Kit. This one's an adorable build, and honestly, it was a blast to put him together. He'll be chilling right on top of my Dark of the Moon clapperboard, right next to my Blockies 2007 Optimus Prime and Megatron, a Stormtrooper Funko Pop, a Coca-Cola bear playing golf, a Jack-in-the-Box bobblehead, and a plush of the Taco Bell dog who at the moment is currently holding Squidward hostage. So yeah, Nemesis Prime's got a pretty cool new home. And I've gotta say, the whole experience with Transforverse has been smooth from start to finish. With over 250 positive reviews on Trustpilot and a 4.8 out of 5 rating, it's clear I'm not the only one who's had a great experience. Plus, they use eco-friendly packaging made from recycled cardboard without cutting corners on protection. Right now, they're available for customers in the European Union, but they're working on expanding to the United Kingdom soon. So if you're in Europe and want to grow your Transformers collection without paying crazy import fees, check out Transforverse.eu. Links in the description below. Now, where were we? Oh, that's right. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was on the way, and Michael Bay wasn't just looking for another Linkin Park song. He wanted something new, something custom, a theme that could match the scale, tone, and emotional weight of the sequel. And so, for the first time, Linkin Park wasn't just contributing a track, they were composing one. But writing a song to fit someone else's story was something that the band was not used to. As Mike Shinoda put it, the challenge was staying true to the film and themselves. They had to find a sweet spot, something that captured the atmosphere of the movie while still being true to the band's identity as well. To make matters more intense, they weren't the only ones in the running. Other bands were being considered, the deadline was tight, and the pressure was on. Shinoda would go on record to state that New Divide was tough because being a song for a big summer movie, it had a tight deadline. To be honest, the movie people had other bands they were considering in the beginning. All were successful bands worthy of having a song teamed with this movie. We were constantly under the time pressure to show Michael Bay and his team that our song would be the best one. Once we delivered it and they came back with a positive response, it felt like we had won a race. The early development of the track involved 4 separate demos, each named after a Transformers character: Bumblebee, Starscream, Optimus, and Megatron. Only one made the cut. That 4th one, Megatron, would eventually evolve into New Divide. Sonically, New Divide was built to sound massive. Brad Delson described it as a heavy, high-energy song where you can't tell what's a guitar and what's a synth. It was full of layered robotic textures and thunderous percussion, a perfect blend of the band's signature style and the mechanical alien tone of the Transformers universe. Once the track was complete, New Divide did not just get dropped into the credits, it was brought straight into the heart of the film's score. You see, after Linkin Park delivered the finished song, Michael Bay passed it along to composer Steve Jablonsky, a longtime collaborator with Hans Zimmer's Media Ventures team. He would go on to state that, "In a nutshell, Michael Bay sent the new Linkin Park song over to my studio. Hans and I had a listen, and we both thought it was really cool, and it might be interesting to try incorporating some of those elements into the score. So we got the guys from the band down to the studio and talked about how to do that. They're all really cool guys and really excited about adding some of their sounds to the score." The result? New Divide was reworked and embedded directly into the score, most notably its haunting two-note guitar motif. That riff was reimagined as a heroic bass cue and appears repeatedly in the film's score, often accompanied by subtle textures from the original guitar melody. And while the full song isn't used outside of the credits, these instrumental flourishes gave New Divide a unique place in the film's DNA, not just as a theme song, but as a musical thread woven throughout the story. The first time New Divide appears is when Nest goes to Shanghai to take out Demolisher. It then later shows up when the Autobots arrive at Nest, and when Galloway grills Optimus. It also appears later in the film during the Foundry fight, as well as the Forest battle. And the last time it is used is when Sam and the gang are driving to Simmons. Now, when it came to the music video for New Divide, it wasn't just a performance clip. It was a full-on extension of the Transformers universe. The video was shot on the Paramount lot and featured a massive set modeled after the Tomb of the Primes, complete with actual props from the movie, including the fossilized remains of the ancient Primes themselves. During filming, they had access to the Matrix of Leadership, and some Nest bazookas and machine guns. However, to my knowledge, these elements never made it into the music video. Now, to match the mechanical energy of the song, the video leaned heavily into visual effects. They worked with the VFX company Ghost Town Media to create a surreal digital meets physical aesthetic, using thermal imagery, warping particle effects, and motion blur trails to make the band feel like they were glitching in and out of some kind of digital dimension. Two versions of the video were released, one intercut with scenes from Revenge of the Fallen, and one featuring just the band's performance. Linkin Park would go on to play New Divide for the US premiere for Revenge of the Fallen outside of Mann's Theater Village in Westwood, California. Critically and commercially, the song was another massive win for Linkin Park. In the US, it debuted at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, their highest debut ever, and eventually it hit number 1 on both the alternative songs and mainstream rock charts. It stayed at the top of the alternative chart for 12 weeks and was later certified platinum, eventually selling over 2.6 million copies in the US alone. But the success did not stop there. The song broke into the top 10 in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, going platinum in multiple countries and becoming one of the band's most internationally successful singles. In Germany, it peaked at number 4, tying with What I've Done as their highest charting song in the country. It also hit number 1 on the UK rock chart and climbed into the top 20 across Europe. It was cinematic, it was global, and it was proof that Linkin Park was not just part of the Transformers franchise anymore. They were now helping to define it. And with Transformers Dark of the Moon on the way, there was no question that they were coming back. But this time, things felt different. The tone of the franchise was shifting, the stakes were higher, the losses were heavier, and the music needed to reflect that. Instead of going bigger and louder, Michael Bay and the band made a bold choice. They went quieter, more introspective, more human. The song they chose wasn't a fist pumper, it was Iridescent, a track that brought something new to the trilogy, reflection. According to Mike Shinoda, the idea came from a conversation with Bay himself. A few months ago, I got on the phone with Michael Bay, who wanted to discuss the possibility of our band continuing our run with songs paired with the Transformers films. We, his team, and our band all have enjoyed working together on the past two, and he wanted to discuss the ideas we might have for Transformers 3: Dark of the Moon. In particular, one song came up immediately. That song was Iridescent. It had already become a fan favorite during live shows, and Shinoda believed it matched the emotional tone of the film perfectly. Not bombastic or chaotic, but hopeful and reflective. Michael Bay agreed, saying he loved pairing the song with the film because he felt like it spoke directly to the storyline. Originally, Iridescent was the 12th track on Linkin Park's 2010 album, 1,000 Suns, their most experimental and politically charged record to date. While the album blended industrial textures with abstract concepts of war, humanity, and technology, Iridescent stood out as a moment of calm within the chaos. Built on a simple piano melody, the song gradually swelled into a sweeping climax of layered guitars, percussion, and gang vocals. Chester Bennington called it one of his favorites on the record, praising the way it built slowly into an emotional release. To make it fit the pacing of Dark of the Moon, the band created a slightly reworked edit of the song, often referred to as the Energy Up version. This remix shortened the runtime by about a minute, and added drums right from the beginning, building momentum faster to suit the tone and structure of the film. Shinoda explained that the request came from their label's radio department, who wanted something that picked up energy and got to the emotional hook sooner. He also noted that the process was tedious since the band was on tour at the time, sending mix notes back and forth on the road. Just like with New Divide, Iridescent wasn't just dropped into the end credits. It was transformed into a reoccurring musical motif throughout the film's score. Hans Zimmer and Steve Jablonsky worked closely with Linkin Park to adapt the film's melodic elements for key emotional moments across the movie. Rather than using the full vocal version, they focused on the song's haunting piano and synth motifs, reworking them into instrumental passages that could evolve and shift based on the scene's tone. The first time Iridescent appears is when Sam discovers Carly has been given a new car, and suggests that they should sell it and buy a house. The second time it appears, the melody is shifted into G minor, as Sam chooses to stay behind with the Autobots while Carly goes off to Dylan's party. The third time it appears, it is toned in A minor, when Sam is getting couples counseling from his parents. The fourth and most impactful appearance is when Sam and Epps infiltrate a ruined Chicago. Again, the theme is in A minor, but this time layered with Shinoda's vocals, pushing the emotional gravity of the moment. Finally, the song returns in full as the credits roll, starting with an instrumental of the first verse in A minor, before transitioning into the single edit of the track. But even here it is modified. The third chorus is cut entirely, flowing directly into the climatic Let It Go bridge before fading into the final chorus. Now, Iridescent did not just bring emotional weight to the film's ending. It also got one of the most visually ambitious music videos Linkin Park has ever made. For the video, the goal was to merge the soulfulness of Transformers' Dark of the Moon with the soulfulness of Linkin Park's music, to explore how humanity might react if faced with the kind of destruction the Decepticons represent. The video presents a surreal post-apocalyptic world, filled with symbolism, religious imagery, and warped versions of power and decay. Visually, it's striking. Color graded in black and white streaks of iridescent color, the video reflects the song's name both in theme and texture. The video also integrates actual footage from Dark of the Moon, blending the cinematic with the surreal. Several Transformers appear between scenes of destruction, tying the narrative of the video back into the film's world. Production-wise, the video pushed technical boundaries. It was mixed in Dolby Surround 7.1 and converted into full 3D by Plasmor Lab. The final result was shown in select theaters after Dark of the Moon's credits rolled, creating a rare crossover between a music video and a theatrical film experience. Behind the scenes, things got even weirder. Mike Shinoda, who hates snakes, was asked to hold one for 5 hours, and Chester Bennington had his face submerged in warm milk. Much of the crew had to work under tight deadlines to get the 3D elements done in time for the movie's premiere. But despite the surreal imagery, the goal was always the same: to make a video that didn't just look cool, but felt like the emotional counterpart to the film's story. An alternative version of the music video exists. This version is slightly different from the original, with the scene of Optimus Prime at 1 minute and 13 seconds being replaced by a scene of dogs running. Some of the colors present on the original video are absent in this version, and Bumblebee is shown in black and white instead of yellow. Now, Iridescent wasn't just a music video, it was a moment, and that moment reached its peak in one of the most ambitious film premieres of all time. You see, on June 23, 2011, Transformers Dark of the Moon held its world premiere at the Moscow International Film Festival. This event was massive, staged in front of thousands at Red Square, and prompted as the biggest premiere in Paramount's history. To celebrate the occasion, Linkin Park performed a full outdoor concert right there in the heart of Moscow, bringing Iridescent to life on stage. Interestingly enough, it was the only live performance of the Energy Up remix. While it wasn't a chart-topping smash like What I've Done or New Divide, Iridescent still held its own. The single peaked at number 81 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and reached number 21 on the Alternative Songs chart before its official release. In the UK, it climbed to number 2 on the rock chart and made a modest debut on the main singles chart at number 93. After Dark of the Moon, it felt inevitable that Linkin Park would return for the next chapter. Their music had become a staple of the franchise, not just in the end credits, but woven into the emotional fabric of the story itself. So naturally, when Transformers Age of Extinction began production, many assumed that the band would be back again, and for a while it looked like they would be. In March 2014, Chester Bennington made it clear that the band fully expected to return for the next Transformers film. "We've been very fortunate working with the Transformers franchise. It's been great for us. Transformers is coming out this summer, and it makes total sense for us to be a part of that as well. So look forward to how that's going to unfold." Even as late as May, after Imagine Dragons had already been announced to be working with Steve Jablonsky on the film's score, Chester still sounded optimistic. "There's definitely some discussion going on, something related to producing music. So I hope everything will be settled and we can take part in the new Transformers. We really like the film itself and our partnership with Transformers. We grew up loving Transformers, so it's very cool to be a part of this." Now, behind the scenes, they were already preparing. Mix engineer Andy Wallace, who had worked with Linkin Park for years, later revealed in a 2017 interview with SoundOnSound.com that from February 19th to the 21st, 2014, he had mixed a new track for the band. one with the working title Thanksgiving. According to Wallace, that song was destined for the 4th Transformers movie. That song would go on to become Until It's Gone, but as we know, it never made it into the film. Despite being mixed and prepared for Transformers Age of Extinction, the track was ultimately left out of both the movie and the official soundtrack. Instead, its only connection to the franchise came through the video game tie-in Transformers Rise of the Darkspark, where it was used in its promotional material. A far cry from the kind of cinematic spotlight Linkin Park had enjoyed on the first 3 films. So what happened? Well, unlike the original trilogy, Transformers Age of Extinction was built as a soft reboot. A new cast, a darker tone, and a push towards a reimagined identity. Director Michael Bay made a conscious effort to separate this 4th installment from what came before. In a 2014 Time magazine interview, Bay said, "It's a new era. You look at everything and you try to change it and twist it on its head." And based on this, we can assume that reinvention extended to the music as well, since instead of continuing with Linkin Park, Bay turned to Imagine Dragons. In an official Paramount press release dated May 13, 2014, Bay expressed his enthusiasm. "We're incredibly lucky that Dan, Wayne, Ben, and Daniel were available to work with us. I remember being drawn to the emotion of Demons and Radioactive the first time I heard those songs, and I knew I wanted that same energy and heart for this movie. They've created a really epic, otherworldly sound for Battle Cry." That being said, Michael Bay clearly wanted to chart a new course, and part of that meant introducing a new musical identity. Imagine Dragons became the sound of this new era, and based on everything that we know, Until It's Gone simply did not fit the vision Bay was building. Still, that makes what happened all the more surprising, because from what we do know, Until It's Gone wasn't just a rough demo or an early idea. It had actually been mixed and prepared for the film, and yet despite Linkin Park's deep history with the franchise, and their close working relationship with Michael Bay across the 3 blockbuster films, the track did not appear anywhere in Age of Extinction. Not during the film, not over the credits, not even tucked in the background. It was simply absent. Unfortunately, we don't have a definitive answer as to why. No official statement was ever released to my knowledge, and neither the band nor the filmmakers have publicly commented on the situation. All we're left with is speculation, and the lingering sense that something familiar was missing. Looking back, it's clear that Linkin Park wasn't just another band on a soundtrack. They were part of what made the Transformers trilogy feel larger than life. Their music did not just accompany the action, it gave it weight, emotion, and identity. Tracks like What I've Done, New Divide, and Iridescent became sonic signatures for the films, songs that played not just during the credits, but in the hearts of moviegoers long after the screen went dark. It was a once-in-a-generation collaboration, a perfect storm of cinematic scale and raw musical energy. And for many fans, it's impossible to imagine the Transformers films without the sound of Linkin Park bringing the story to life. While that era may have ended with Dark of the Moon, its legacy still echoes, in playlists, in memories, and in the emotional connection between a band and a blockbuster franchise. And who knows, maybe one day in a future chapter of Transformers, that connection will spark to life once again.